What's up, guys? Dr. Alex here, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I'm going bald. But good news, if you're a guy watching this, chances are you are too, whether or not you know it yet. So today we're talking hair, specifically why it's bailing on you, what actually stops the slide, and how TRT can poke the bear if you've got the wrong genetics. We're going to keep this tight, evidence-based, and useful, unlike my opinions on Bohemian Grove and how our government is all run by lizards. All right, so let's get cracking. What is male pattern baldness, aka androgenic alopecia? Ultimately, male pattern baldness is a remodeling problem. Hair follicles in specific regions, think the temples, mid-scalp, and crown, gradually miniaturize. Thick terminal hairs get replaced by wispy vellus hairs. The growth phase shortens, the resting phase lengthens, fiber diameter shrinks, and coverage drops, like me getting out of the pool. That's miniaturization in plain English. So what's the anatomy and why should you care? A follicle isn't just a tube with a hair in it. From the top to the bottom, you've got the infundibulum, which is the funnel, the isthmus, which is the midsection, and then the inferior segment where the bulb lives. Now, the bulge region, giggity, is the stem cell vault, and the dermal papilla at the base is mission control. That papilla talks to the rest of the follicle and decides to grow or nope. DHT, dihydrotestosterone, binds androgen receptors in the papilla, shifting local signaling towards stop growing, and over cycles, each hair comes back a little smaller. Rinse, repeat, bald. So does TRT make this worse? The answer is sometimes, if you're genetically loaded. Testosterone is the substrate. 5-alpha reductase turns it into DHT, and if your scalp follicles are sensitive, raising T can raise DHT locally and accelerate a process that was already underway. TRT just means that the androgen-dependent hair changes are going to show up sooner or speed up over time. That does not mean that TRT automatically nukes your hair. It means TRT exposes the genetic hand you've always been holding. As a practical note, avoiding big peaks and keeping levels physiologic may help a bit, but ultimately genetics call the shots here. And no, that mom side only myth is complete nonsense. Yes, the androgen receptor gene does live on the X chromosome, which I think means you get all your gains from your mom. We'll unpack that later. But large GWAS datasets show piles of autosomal hits leading to androgenic alopecia, so you inherit risk from both sides. So good news, you can blame your dad too. Now, let's move on to treatment. What actually moves the needle when it comes to hair loss? And no, I'm not talking about microneedling yet. That's a later video. Let's start with orals and then go to topicals and then talk about how to stack them. Let's start with finasteride, which is the baseline DHT blocker. But talking about mechanism, finasteride is a type 2 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, which means that there is less conversion of T to DHT, especially in the scalp and prostate. Originally designed to reduce the size of the prostate and improve urinary symptoms in older men, finasteride has been shown to reduce male pattern baldness, and the dosing that matters is just 1 milligram a day. Dose-ranging trials showed that 1 milligram works about as well as 5 milligrams a day, and more isn't better for hair, it's just more systemic exposure. So what can you expect? In the classic trials, finasteride at 1 milligram improved vertex hair counts by roughly 107 hairs at 1 year and 138 hairs at 2 years within a 1-inch circle versus placebo. The translation is that you first stabilize and then you claw back some density over 6 to 12 months, with full credit hitting around 12 to 24 months. So let's talk side effects and the post-finasteride syndrome elephant in the room. Randomized trials showed low absolute rates of sexual adverse events, often close to placebo, and typically these were reversible when you stop. But since reaching the market, post-finasteride syndrome has emerged, which is a set of persistent sexual and neuropsychiatric symptoms that have been associated with finasteride use. Now, the true incidence is controversial, data is mixed and methodologically messy. My stance is that you have to provide patients with informed consent, document, and monitor. If someone gets side effects, we have to stop, most symptoms will resolve, and then we can pivot to alternatives. Bottom line, finasteride 1 milligram daily is the evidence-based floor for most men who want to keep their hair. But who wants to start with the light stuff? Let's move on to the big guns. We're talking dutasteride. So dutasteride is a type 1 and type 2 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. It drops serum DHT harder, think 90 to 98% versus 70% with finasteride. So it often performs better on hair counts and head-to-head data at 24 weeks. The typical hair dose is about 0.5 milligrams daily, which is off-label in the US when it comes to hair. So when is dutasteride typically used? Usually it's reserved for younger guys with aggressive loss, crown-dominant thinning, or maybe guys who progressed on finasteride and now want maximal DHT blockage. And patients still need to accept the possibility of sexual or mood side effects. Not that any of those side effects are guaranteed, mind you. Personally, I've been on Dutasteride for years, and maybe I'm just lucky, but personally, I haven't noticed any sides. Your mileage may vary. The bottom line is that Dutasteride offers more potent DHT blockade, offers more regrowth, but it requires the same informed consent conversation. All right, now let's talk oral minoxidil, which is off-label but totally legit. Let's start with its mechanism of action. Minoxidil itself is a prodrug that's sulfated in the follicle by the enzyme SULT1A1. This transforms it into its active form, which is minoxidil sulfate. Minoxidil sulfate then acts as a potassium channel opener, which causes vasodilation, resulting in a longer anagen phase. Now, originally a blood pressure drug, this werewolf side effect is increased hair growth. Now, the dosing that we see actually work in men ranges from 2.5 to 5 milligrams nightly. Again, we recommend that men start low and slowly titrate up. So let's take a look at what the best comparative trial data says. 5 milligrams of oral minoxidil daily wasn't necessarily superior to 5% topical twice daily at 24 weeks, and it isn't a cheat code, but it's potent and incredibly convenient. Most patients find it a lot easier to take a daily pill than remembering to put on a foam twice a day. Now, some side effects to watch out for include headache, maybe some occasional edema, and maybe some increased heart rate. Again, this is another agent that I've been on for years, and speaking personally, I haven't had any adverse side effects. The bottom line is this: oral minoxidil is a great adjunct or an alternative if you hate topical and need convenience, but you should combine this with a DHT blocker. It is not a replacement for finasteride. So let's move on to topicals, aka where most people should start or stack. So let's start off with topical minoxidil, aka your classic Rogaine or Kirkland signature. This typically comes in a 5% solution or foam. Dosing is 1 milliliter twice daily for men, and randomized controlled trials show that 5% works better than 2% and does so faster. Foam tends to irritate less than the solution, and the best data is for the Vertex, but hairline can improve as well. The minimum commitment required is 6 months, with peak benefit showing around 12 to 18 months. Consistency beats enthusiasm. Now, the obvious drawback is just what the foam itself does to your hairstyle. The greasy look is not attractive, especially when your hair is already thinner than Ariana Grande after her affair with SpongeBob. Now, moving on to topical finasteride. Data shows that 0.25% solutions of topical finasteride increased hair counts to a similar magnitude compared to oral 1 milligram finasteride at 24 weeks in a phase 3 randomized controlled trial, with over 100% lower plasma finasteride and a smaller serum DHT drop. And that's why most people claim a lower systemic exposure, which is technically correct. But a quick reality check: systemic absorption isn't zero. Serum DHT still drops by a third, so sexual adverse events are still possible, but just less common. Probably. The data is just lacking here. So what's the best use case? Typically, this is good for men who want finasteride scalp effect with less systemic exposure, or who've had mild sides on an oral or want to retry topically, or guys who just want to stack everything. Now, what about topical dutasteride? Topical dutasteride is promising, but it's still early. A randomized study pairing microneedling with topical dutasteride beat microneedling plus placebo, and small trials and phase 2 work suggest it may compete with oral options, but we still need larger, longer studies to say for sure. Now, personally, and you may be noticing a pattern here, I've stacked BID, topical dutasteride, and minoxidil for years, and I sincerely think it's helped, but I do have to get it from a specialty compounding pharmacy. Topical finasteride and dutasteride aren't things you can typically find at your local Walgreens. All right, now we move on to topical ketoconazole, which is an excellent adjunct option. No, it's not magic, but yes, it helps. I recommend using a 2% shampoo 2 to 3 times a week and leaving it on for 3 to 5 minutes. It calms scalp inflammation and has mild anti-androgenic effects. Small human studies show increases in hair shaft diameter and anagen proportion. I treat it like dental hygiene for the scalp. It's low risk, it's a force multiplier, and just makes everything else work better. Now, for those of you lab rats out there, let's go way off the beaten path. We're talking topical RU58841. RU58841 is a topical small molecule anti-androgen that binds directly to the androgen receptor and is often referred to as a SARM, although that may not be accurate. Selective androgen receptor modulator implies selectivity, and there is nothing selective about RU58841. It binds to the androgen receptor with a vengeance, totally blocking off testosterone or DHT from binding to the androgen receptor. Now, this would be terrible if taken systemically, but topically, it offers an intriguing alternative to options like topical finasteride or dutasteride. But this is not available as a prescription option. This is a straight research chemical that you have to purchase from some pretty interesting sources and then apply at your own risk. So let the record show, this is not something that I encourage or endorse. And we have to keep in mind that topical finasteride and dutasteride, we know result in serum levels of these compounds. So some of the RU58841 has to go systemically. But while I don't recommend it, I have to be honest, and this is something that I too have been using for about 2 to 3 years now, and again, haven't experienced any known side effects. Of course, because you're not getting it from a pharmacy, it could just be saline I'm putting on my head, so who the heck knows? So let's cap this video off with talking about how I'd actually build a plan for a patient. If you're someone who's on TRT and noticing an acceleration in hair loss, we typically start by pairing a DHT blocker like finasteride 1 mg or dutasteride 0.5 mg with minoxidil, which is a topical 5% BID, or again, oral 2.5 to 5 mg once in the evening. For those men who want less systemic exposure, we start with a topical finasteride at a 0.25% solution once daily and minoxidil of your choice. And then we add in Ketoconazole 2% shampoo 2 to 3 times a week. We typically reassess it at 6 months, and then patients see the full story by 1 year. Now, for those patients who still aren't where they want to be, the next steps involve maybe microneedling, PRP, or even hair transplant, which are all worthy of their own deep dive. But ultimately, hair loss is a management disease, like hypertension, and never just goes away. The meds work while you use them. Quit, and biology's gonna do what biology's gonna do. All right, time for some rapid fire myth busting. Number 1, I'll just take more finasteride. No, you don't get more hair above 1 mg. You just increase your exposure and potentially risk worse side effects. Number 2, oral minoxidil is way stronger. Yeah, it's strong, but the best head-to-head data at 24 weeks showed no overall superiority to just 5% topical BID, and that you can get over the counter. Number 3, topical finasteride has 0 systemic effects. False. It's lower, but it's not 0. And 4th, it's only from your mom. Totally false. It's polygenic and both sides contribute. So to wrap things up, if you want hair longevity, you have to work 2 angles simultaneously. The first is you have to block DHT, and the second is that you have to feed the follicle. You need to be consistent for at least a year before you can declare victory or defeat. Now, if this helped and you like this kind of video or content, make sure to click like, subscribe, and drop a comment with your current regimen or your experience on TRT and hair. Also, YouTube just rolled out this new hype feature for channels under 500K subs. For the first 7 days after the upload, you can hit the hype button under the video to push this into the weekly leaderboard. It's free and it helps get you guys more accurate science-based info. And if you want protocols and deeper dives, join our Discord, links in the bio. And if it's not in the description down below, just blame Mike. Everything's his fault anyways. Until next time, this is Dr. Alex, signing off.